Okay, so welcome to the deep dive. And today, we're going to really zero in on something that I think a lot of you have been asking about, and that's the Tesla Optimus bot, specifically Gen 3.
Gen 3.
We've been seeing a lot of articles, some expert analysis. There's official updates coming out kind of left and right.
Yeah.
So we thought, let's dive in, pull all these sources together, and try to get a really clear picture of where this whole humanoid robot project is at right now.
Yeah.
And I think more importantly, where it's going,
Yeah.
what can we actually expect to see?
And that's the big question, isn't it? We've been following Elon Musk's vision for Optimus for a while now, and it's
Yeah.
always been, well, incredibly ambitious to say the least. I mean, some people are even saying this could be bigger than Tesla's EVs in the long run. But that's a whole other discussion. I think for this deep dive, we really need to get into the nitty-gritty of Gen 3. Like, what are the confirmed details and what's just speculation?
Yeah, and it is crazy to think about how fast this whole thing has moved. I mean, it was March 2023 when they first showed off the first Optimus. Then, boom, December same year, Gen 2 hits the scene.
I know, right?
So, I mean, that kind of development speed, it makes you wonder what they're going to pull off with this Gen 3. Okay, so let's start with what we know for sure about Optimus Gen 3, the cold, hard facts.
Well, to be completely honest, Tesla's been pretty tight-lipped about the specific details. We haven't seen like a full spec sheet or anything like that for Gen 3. You know, it's Tesla. They like to keep things
Right.
under wraps. But Elon Musk has given us some hints about the timeline. He said they're aiming for limited production of Optimus robots in 2025. And get this, he's also suggested that other companies, not just Tesla, might be able to buy these robots as early as 2026.
Whoa, hold on. 2026.
Yeah.
So other companies could be using these things in what, like a year, 2 years? That's huge. We're not just talking about Tesla using them in their own factories anymore. This could be like everywhere.
Exactly. And, that's what makes this so potentially disruptive. We're not talking about decades down the line. This could be very soon.
And what about that Mars mission? Wasn't there talk about sending an Optimus to Mars?
Oh, yeah. Musk mentioned that, too. He said they're planning to send an Optimus robot on a SpaceX Starship mission also in 2026. Now, whether that'll be specifically Gen 3 or some kind of modified version,
Right.
who knows? But the fact that they're even considering it for something as demanding as a Mars mission
Yeah.
tells you a lot about how seriously they're taking the reliability and the autonomous capabilities of these robots.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't exactly send a repair guy to Mars if it breaks down.
Right, exactly. You need something that can operate reliably and make decisions on its own in a completely
Yeah.
unpredictable environment.
Okay, so we've got limited production in 2025. But what does limited actually mean for Tesla?
Well, in a Q1 2025 meeting, Musk said they were aiming to produce what he called a legion of Optimus robots. And they've clarified that means around 5,000 units. But here's where it gets really interesting. Their internal target for procuring parts is actually much higher. They're aiming to get enough components to build something like 10,000 to 12,000 robots this year.
10 to 12,000.
Yeah. So there's clearly an ambition to scale up production.
Wow. So they're already thinking big, even if they're starting with a smaller production run. And I guess the first one has already been built, right?
It has. We know that the very first Optimus robot rolled off the production line at the Fremont factory
Okay.
earlier this year. That's a pretty big milestone.
Yeah, that's got to be a good feeling to see that first one actually,
Yeah.
working.
And it seems like they're taking a phased approach to the rollout. So the plan is to start with what they're calling Optimus Production Version 1. And that'll go into limited production, but within Tesla's own factories in early 2026. The idea is to use them internally first, kind of like a real-world testing ground, to really refine the design and see how they perform in actual work environments.
That makes sense, like a beta test, but with, robots.
Exactly. And then if everything goes according to plan, they're aiming to have production version 2 ready for external customers, potentially by the end of 2026.
So internal testing first, then wider release. Okay, I like it. But let's be realistic, building robots like this can't be cheap.
No, it's a complex and expensive process for sure. But you might be surprised to hear that Elon Musk has actually projected a relatively low production cost. He said they're aiming for around $10,000 per Optimus unit. And he's even speculated that the selling price could be around $19,999.
10,000 to make, 20,000 to buy. I mean, that's not that far off from a decent car these days.
I know, right? It's a lot more attainable than many people probably thought. And if they can actually achieve that, it could really shake things up in the robotics industry.
Big time. So how are they planning to keep the costs so low?
Well, a big part of it is Tesla's vertical integration. They design and manufacture a lot of their components in-house. That cuts out a lot of middlemen and, keeps costs down. Plus, they've always been focused on high production volume. That's
Yeah.
kind of their thing.
Right.
So as they scale up production, the per unit cost should naturally come down.
Economies of scale. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's a big part of their strategy. They're not aiming for niche, low volume robots. They want these to be everywhere.
I mean, I can already picture them like, delivering packages, stocking shelves, all sorts of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we've covered what's been confirmed, or at least what Tesla has said publicly. But now let's get into the more fun part, the speculation.
The juicy stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Based on what we saw from Gen 1 to Gen 2, what kind of advancements are we expecting to see in Gen 3?
Well, think about the jump from Gen 1 to Gen 2. The design got more streamlined, the hands got way more dexterous, the movements were more fluid.
Yeah.
So it's safe to say that Gen 3 is going to build on those improvements. We're probably going to see some big leaps in AI, more efficient motors, and definitely better battery life because, let's be real, you need a robot that can run for a while before needing to be plugged in.
For sure. For sure. And what about the brains of the operation, the AI? How much smarter is this thing going to get?
Oh, that's a good question. And this is where Tesla has a real advantage. I mean, think about all the work they've already done with their autonomous vehicles.
Right, right.
The AI systems they've developed for things like vision, object recognition, navigation. Optimus is designed to tap into all of that.
So basically, they're taking all that AI knowledge from their cars and putting it into a robot.
Yeah, and there's even been talk that they might use the same FSD computer that's in their cars to power Optimus. So imagine all that real-world driving data, all those learning algorithms. They could potentially feed that into Optimus.
That's wild. So it's like a walking, talking version of a Tesla car.
Kind of, yeah. And, Tesla's really focused on safety with their cars, so it's pretty much guaranteed that Gen 3 is going to have some serious safety features built in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Emergency stops, obstacle detection, advanced navigation, all that stuff. Because you don't want a super strong, super smart robot running around without some serious safety protocols.
For sure, for sure. Now let's talk about the competition. There are a lot of companies getting into the humanoid robot game these days. Where does Optimus Gen 3 stand in all of that?
Yeah, it's getting crowded out there. You've got companies like Figure AI. They're focusing more on robots for home use, everyday tasks. Then you've got Google with their AppTurn project, which is, Google. So they've got some serious resources behind it. And let's not forget the rumors that Apple, OpenAI, and Meta might be jumping in soon, too. So there's a lot of competition on the horizon.
So how does Optimus stand out? What makes it unique in this sea of robots?
Well, if we look at Apptronic and their Apollo robot, Apollo is supposed to have a higher payload capacity. So for industrial jobs where you need to move heavy things,
Right.
that could be an advantage. But Optimus seems to be ahead in terms of hand dexterity. I mean, those Gen 2 videos where it's handling eggs, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And of course, there's that whole Tesla ecosystem integration, which could be a game changer. Then you've got Boston Dynamics Atlas, which is known for its crazy agility and movements. But Optimus is designed more for working in human environments,
Right, right.
It needs to be able to navigate our world, not just like do backflips in a lab.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's worth noting that one area where the early Optimus prototypes were lacking was speed. They topped out at like 0.6 meters per second. That's pretty slow.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if Gen 3 sees a significant boost in speed and agility.
It needs to be able to keep up with us, right?
Exactly. Okay, let's get into some tech specs. We've got some data on Gen 1 and Gen 2. What kind of upgrades are we expecting to see on a technical level with Gen 3? Yeah, let's get into the nuts and bolts.
All right, so Gen 1, it was about 1.73 meters tall, weighed 73 kilograms. It had 28 actuators, 11 degrees of freedom in its hands, and it could carry 20 kilograms and deadlift 68. It used the Tesla SoC, which is their main processing unit. Now, Gen 2 was a big step up. It was lighter, down to 57 kilograms.
Wow, that's a big difference.
Yeah. And faster, it could move at 2.24 meters per second, and the dexterity was way better, with 40 degrees of freedom.
Okay, so for Gen 3, are we talking even more actuators for even finer control?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's almost a given. And the sensors are going to be better, too. We might see more advanced vision systems, maybe even some kind of tactile feedback in the hand, so it can really feel what it's touching. And the battery tech has to improve, too, if they want these things to be out in the world working all day.
Yeah, battery life is key.
Absolutely. And then there's the processing power. We'll need faster processors, more sophisticated AI to handle all the complex tasks they're envisioning for Optimus.
Right, right. And we've talked about how, the early prototypes were a little jerky in their movements.
Yeah,
Hopefully that's something that'll be improved in Gen 3.
definitely. I mean, if they want these robots to be working alongside humans, they need to move in a way that's not, creepy or unsettling.
Right, exactly. Speaking of which, we've seen a lot of demos of Optimus doing different things. How has its capabilities evolved over time?
Well, those first demos back in 2022, they were pretty basic. It could walk, pick up a few things, but that was about it. But with Gen 2, we saw a big leap. It could sort blocks, do yoga pose, even handle delicate things like battery cells.
Yeah.
And then there was that whole Wii robot event last year.
Oh, yeah, the dancing robots.
Yeah, that was a big publicity stunt. But it did show that they were making progress in terms of coordinated movements and more complex tasks. And more recently, they released a video of Optimus learning to walk without using its vision, just relying on its internal sensors.
So, like, walking blindfolded.
Kind of, yeah. It's a step towards more robust navigation, being able to handle unexpected situations.
That's impressive.
Yeah. But there's been some debate about how autonomous those demos really were. Some people think they might have been teleoperated to some extent.
So maybe not as independent as they seemed.
Maybe. So I think for Gen 3, they really need to showcase those autonomous capabilities. Prove that these robots can actually think for themselves, not just follow pre-programmed routines.
Yeah, autonomy is key.
Absolutely. And those Gen 2 hands were a big improvement too. The 11 degrees of freedom in each hand meant it could handle fragile objects without crushing them.
The egg demo was pretty cool.
Yeah. So we can expect even more refinement in the hands for Gen 3. And that walking without vision thing, that's huge for navigation. It means it can potentially operate in all sorts of environments, even if it can't see everything clearly.
So it's becoming more adaptable, more capable.
Exactly. Okay, so now let's talk about what the experts are saying. We've touched on some of the skepticism, but what's the overall industry perspective on Optimus Gen 3?
Yeah, what's the word on the street?
Well, there's a range of opinions, from cautious optimism to some pretty serious doubts. Some analysts are saying the hype is overblown, and they question how advanced this technology really is compared to some of the more established robotics companies.
So some people are saying it's all smoke and mirrors.
Not quite, but there's definitely a sense that Tesla needs to prove themselves in this area. They're the new kids on the block when it comes to humanoid robots.
Right, right.
And how do they see Optimus stacking up against the competition?
Yeah, good question.
Well, comparisons to Boston Dynamics Atlas are inevitable. Atlas is like the gold standard for agility and dynamic movement. And then you have more affordable options like the Unitree G1, which are already commercially available. Optimus seems to be aiming for something in between, a more general-purpose robot that can leverage Tesla's AI expertise and be produced at a lower cost.
So like the best of both worlds.
They're hoping so. But some experts have pointed out that Optimus is still behind in terms of handling really complex, unpredictable interactions. And Apptronik's Apollo, which focuses on heavy lifting, might have an edge in certain industrial settings. Plus, there's that whole teleoperation question. Until Tesla clearly demonstrates that these robots can operate autonomously, there's always going to be that doubt lingering in the back of people's minds.
So there's potential, but they need to back it up with solid evidence.
Absolutely. But it's not all doom and gloom. A lot of experts are excited about Tesla's potential for mass production and cost reduction.
Right.
If they can actually deliver a capable humanoid robot for, say, $20,000, that would be a game changer. It would make this technology accessible to a much wider range of industries and applications.
Yeah, it would be huge.
And of course, the broader potential of humanoid robots is incredibly exciting. They could revolutionize how we work, how we live. And a lot of people see Tesla's entry into this field as a major step towards making that vision a reality.
So it's like a high-risk, high-reward situation.
Exactly.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about potential applications. Where are we actually going to see Optimus Gen 3 being used?
Oh, the possibilities are endless. In industrial settings, you can imagine them working in factories, warehouses, doing all those repetitive, physically demanding jobs. They could handle material handling, assembly line work, quality control inspections, all sorts of things.
So like the robots are taking over the factory floor.
Well, not taking over, but definitely augmenting the workforce. And then in homes, they could help with chores, provide companionship for the elderly, assist with cooking, cleaning, you name it. And then there's the more specialized applications like the Mars mission, or even working in service industries like we saw with that bartending demo.
So from space to serving drinks, the potential is pretty broad.
It is. But to make all of that happen, they need to nail a few key things. The navigation has to be rock solid. The robots need to be able to handle a wide range of objects and tasks, and they have to be able to interact with humans safely and intuitively.
No robot uprisings, please.
Exactly. But if they can pull it off, the impact on society and the economy could be huge. We're talking about potentially reshaping entire industries.
Yeah, that's a whole other discussion.
Right. So what about the timeline? When can we expect to actually see these robots out in the wild?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Well, they were initially hoping for 2023, but that was clearly too ambitious. The current target is for limited production to start this year, 2025.
Okay.
And they're aiming to ramp up significantly in 2026. They've said they want to be producing tens of thousands of units. And their internal target for parts this year is something like 10,000 to 12,000 robots, although they're only planning to assemble around 5,000.
So they're being cautious with the assembly, but they're clearly stocking up on parts.
Yeah. And they're planning to start using them internally in their own factories in early 2026. Then, if all goes well, they're hoping to start selling to external customers by the end of 2026.
So late 2026 is the potential launch window for the rest of us.
Potentially, yeah. But let's not forget Tesla's track record with timelines. They're known for being optimistic, shall we say.
Right, so we'll see.
Exactly. Building robots like this at scale is incredibly complex. There are bound to be delays and unexpected challenges along the way.
Okay, so we've got a tentative timeline. Let's recap the cost situation one more time.
Sure. The estimated production cost is around $10,000 per unit, and they're aiming for a selling price between $20,000 and $30,000. And remember, their long-term goal is to get the cost down to less than a car,
Wow.
which is pretty crazy when you think about it.
It is, so how are they going to make that happen?
Well, they've got a few things working in their favor.
Yeah.
Their supply chain is already set up for large-scale production. They're experts at manufacturing complex electronics, and they're planning to produce these things in huge numbers, which should bring the per-unit cost down.
Economies of scale again.
Exactly. But of course, the final price will depend on a lot of factors: the final specs of the robot, how efficiently they can manufacture them, and what the competition looks like when they launch.
Right, it's a moving target.
Yeah.
So what about the Tesla fan community? What are they saying about all of this?
Oh, they're excited, for sure. The idea of having a robot that can help with chores, automate tasks, that's appealing to a lot of people. But there's also a healthy dose of skepticism.
Yeah.
They're not just blindly accepting everything Tesla says. They want to see proof, they want to see those autonomous capabilities in action, and some of them are comparing Optimus to Atlas and saying it's not as agile or advanced.
So they're keeping them honest.
Exactly. And there's debate about how well Tesla's FSD software will translate to controlling a humanoid robot. Driving a car is one thing. Navigating a cluttered house is a whole different ballgame.
Right, right. But they are excited about the potential, though.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of excitement. They're hoping that Tesla can pull this off, that they can deliver on their promises, and they're already imagining all sorts of ways they could integrate Optimus with other Tesla products, like having it charge their cars or maybe even work with the robotaxi network in the future.
That would be pretty wild.
Yeah. So there's a lot of buzz, a lot of anticipation, but also a lot of show me from the community.
Okay, let's try to summarize some of these key details and comparisons with a couple of tables.
Sure. The first table focuses on the evolution of Optimus from Gen 1 to Gen 2, and then what we're anticipating for Gen 3. We're talking about things like height, weight, speed, dexterity, all the technical stuff. But keep in mind that the Gen 3 specs are mostly educated guesses at this point. They don't have all the hard data yet.
Got it. And the second table compares Optimus Gen 3 to some of its main competitors, right?
Exactly. We're looking at things like agility, strength, how autonomous they are, the target price, and what kind of applications they're best suited for. And what stands out is that Optimus is aiming for a lower price point and a more general-purpose role, leveraging Tesla's existing AI and manufacturing capabilities.
So the potential for a more affordable, versatile robot is what sets Optimus apart.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. What are the key takeaways for our listeners today?
Well, there's no denying that Tesla's Optimus project is ambitious, and they've made some impressive progress in a short amount of time. They're aiming for limited production this year and a much larger rollout in 2026, with the potential for sales to external customers by the end of that year. We've talked about the anticipated features, the potential applications, and the overall industry perspective. But it's important to remember that there are still a lot of unknowns. The true level of autonomy, the final price, the actual impact on the world, all of that remains to be seen.
So it's a wait-and-see situation.
In a lot of ways, yes. But even if they only achieve a fraction of what they're aiming for, this could be a truly transformative technology. And, that's what makes it so fascinating to follow.
Absolutely. And for our listeners out there, here's something to ponder. Given everything we've discussed, what kind of unexpected societal or ethical challenges might arise from widespread humanoid robot adoption? And what does general purpose really mean when it comes to robots? How will we define their success, and how will they ultimately fit into our lives? Those are some big questions to think about.
Big questions indeed.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll be back soon with more explorations of the cutting edge.
See you then.